I'd like to invite the panelists to come up and join me right now while I set the stage for this panel. Over the last many years, as a startup thing became a thing, we started to hear stories of startup founders. What's it like to be a founder? We've heard this story over and over and over, and there's an arc to it. Build a team, get funding, grind, fail fast, scale, stuff like that. And then in a typical founder panel, what you'll get is success stories, successful exits with successful founders, and then retroactive lessons learned, which are great. It's a great story. We've heard it over and over, and there's a ton that we have learned from it. But it's been replayed on podcasts and books and panels for a couple decades now. But there's something new going on in the founder experience. It's not for everybody. It's not widely distributed yet. But with AI added to the equation, this is not just another tool in a founder belt. It's not bolt-on. This is fundamentally changing what it means to be a founder. It's fundamentally changing what it means to do business. They're able to go farther, faster with less money in some cases, and in some cases they need way more money. It's changing the nature of what a company even looks like. It's changing the nature of work and how value is being delivered. But these are all changes that we haven't figured out what they mean yet. So we know there's a lot of AI slop in this process. That's just creativity and innovation. That's not a new idea. It's what innovation and creativity looks like. But as we're doing this startup thing, I wanted to ask a set of founders who are right in the middle of the grist of something. I wanted to ask them a set of questions of what they're experiencing right now, because we don't have success stories yet from what it means to build a company that's AI native. We're still doing that. So this conversation is with people, 3 founders in particular, and then I'll introduce John here in a minute. John's our enterprise guy that's been in this for a long time and doing infrastructure work. And I wanted that perspective as well. But 3 founders who are still doing it, haven't figured it out. They have some experience, lots of experimentation, but success is not guaranteed yet. They're in the middle of raises, and they're changing regularly. So this conversation is not rooted in confidence. It's rooted in courage, a drive to discover into a world that is still unfolding. So let's give them some grace on that. We're going to talk as though we know what we're talking about. We have no idea what we're talking about. But let me set a few assumptions that we've made, because the AI conversation is broad, it's wide, there's all kinds of camps, there's all kinds of perspectives. And so to contain it a bit, we're making a series of assumptions. Number 1, it is going to be an incredibly disruptive technology that is going to change the fabric of work, our economy, and possibly our society. We're going to make that assumption. That could be wrong. It may not be that, but we're going to make that assumption. Meaning it's a paradigm shift. Number 2, we're assuming that the outcome is going to be largely good with unintended negative consequences, because that's how all technology change happens, right? But we're assuming positive outcomes with negative unintended consequences, which I would guess we don't know what those are yet. So if you think you know what the negatives of AI are, maybe you should hold that a little loosely as we navigate. And then finally, the transition from where we are to where we're going is going to be incredibly difficult. People are going to get hurt. Losses, challenges. People are going to be some people will win. We don't know who those people are yet. But the difference between where we are and where we're going, paradigm shifting, and it's the transition that is going to be incredibly difficult. And the reason I make that claim is because that's how all technology transitions have been. This isn't new. We've actually done this before. But it's new for us. So let me introduce my panel here. This is Jason Andrew. Jason is the co-founder of Navwise, and Garrett just pitched, so you kind of have an idea of what he's building. But Jason is a seasoned entrepreneur. He's now an angel investor. Comes to us out of the Bay. And the thing I find interesting about Jason is he's chosen to dig back in again. He's pushed back in, and he's found himself in this new world, learning new skills. When we were pre-gaming this conversation, he said to me, "At this point, I think I'm half cyborg, and I'm eager to discover what that means." This is John McCammon. John is a seasoned executive and comes to us from Amazon. He's with AWS, been there for about 10 years, and has been in infrastructure at an enterprise level, cloud, all that kind of stuff, and delivering the services that AI and Agentic founders need. And I thought he would bring an interesting perspective from that lens. This is Daniel Mahanro. If you recognize Daniel, that's because he was last year's winner of this conference. Daniel is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Swirl, which is largely in the marketing space, but he's doing amazing and interesting things with AI in that space. And as we were talking, prepping for this, the thing that I want to dig into is what he pitched last year isn't what he's doing now. And it's a direct result of the impact of AI. And on the end here, we have Aaron Patterson, CEO of Legendary Business Intelligence. He pitched to Abby earlier today. Aaron and I have been working together for a couple years. So you've got a sense of what he's doing. All three of them are in different parts of the AI journey. Some of them have exited, some of them never have, some of them are mid, some of them are early stage. We're gonna get very different perspectives from them. But what I hope you're gonna gain from this is an enhanced understanding of some of the opportunities and challenges of being a founder with this new technology as a partner. So please welcome the panel. Daniel, I'm going to start with you and just give us an update of what you're working on. And then as you think about that, the question I have for you is AI something that is additive to your company, or is it how you make money?
Well, first of all, I want to say that this writing community is one of the most amazing, supportive communities. So I was here last year, my first time up to Reading, and pitching in front of people that I never knew, never met. And now I think I have more friends here in Reading than I have in the Bay Area. But again, thank you so much for this opportunity. So yeah, last year we were building a technology that helped brands connect and engage with communities by helping communities be ad agencies for them. So you had an AI moderation layer in the middle that helped content and creative be optimized for brand aligned and then distributed back into those communities. But about 8 months ago, we were starting to look at where AI was headed. And we had a team meeting, and I said, you know what? So content and creative, all of the things that we were working on, even though it's from the community, I think all of that's going to get commoditized so quickly. Gen AI, I know people want to work with communities and they want to have like truly authentic content from communities. But if Gen AI is producing that a lot quicker, a lot more effectively, more cost effectively, you're not going to take pay 90% more just for that authentic connection. And so what we started to realize is, in this new age, you're gonna have content, like creative firepower is gonna be for everybody. Everyone's access to all of that. Optimization logic, you can have all of that. And then your distribution, everyone has the same distribution. So the things that would differentiate you before are no longer differentiators. And so what we were thinking about was, well, how do companies then differentiate? And we said the best way to differentiate is actually to build trust and relevance and advocacy. And how do you build trust? So you build trust actually through dialogue and conversation. You actually had to talk to people. And the reason I have friends here is because last year I talked to a lot of people and had conversations with a lot of people. So what we're saying is, well, what if brands can have conversations, not online, because online is going to be so noisy and bot-driven, but how can you have conversations with people in real life on virtual meetings? So that's what we do. So we create brand-specific conversational AI agents that join community meetups and dialogue with them. And the communities then get paid for that. So what we're saying is like, hey, the future of work, nobody knows what the future of work is going to look like. But we believe the future of work is human. So what we help communities do is help monetize what makes them human. So their thoughts, their insights, their creativity, and all of that.
Did you say the future of work is human?
That is correct.
What do you mean by that?
I think somebody mentioned it maybe on a pitch, but you go through these transformations in our history, and you have the agricultural revolution, you have industrial, and then you have the AI revolution, right? You have something that we had all of these machine-like behaviors, process, programmatic, all of those things are very machine-like. But the things that are not machine-like is our intuition, it's our feelings. Like the things that are really important are things that are not really that measured, right? You can't measure love or care or feelings. But so what we're saying is, well, if you can actually build a career out of being yourself, being human, sharing things about yourself, connecting with each other, engaging with each other, that's, I think, where the future of work is. That's human.
Jason, as you've been building, you've built companies prior to AI, and now you're doing it with AI. I'm curious if you can share with us some insights of what you can do now that would have been impossible or possibly impractical, say 5 years ago.
I love that you asked me that question. And I may have AI psychosis, so and I don't want to make light of anyone who actually has had that because it's a thing. So just take with what I say with a grain of salt. No, but it's fascinating what can be done now because it used to be our last company, Limelight, we had an office here in Reading and had a number of people. And if I was thinking one day, I wish the product team could build this feature and do this thing, or, I'm thinking about this concept and I want to make this thing. Now all I do is I am in my office alone. And I feel like that Claude, which I live in all day long, Claude Code mostly, and I'm not a technical co-founder or technical founder. I've become substantially more in the last year and last 3 months, even more so. But I now sit in my office and it feels like I have peers in any category that I want that I just talk to. And I'm like, I want to build something. And an hour later, I have a prototype, or I've got my entire thesis written up, or I've got a complete design. Stuff that would take, months to do with a team of people, I can just iterate on all the time. And this may not be things that go to production or ever become meaningful in terms of real value maybe to the business. But for me personally and me processing things or prototyping or trying to work through a difficult concept or prepare for something, it's an absolute game changer. There's nothing that I could compare it to even several years ago.
So when you say game changer, we're talking about the game, 2 games. It's now you're in a different game. Can you enlighten us more about how that game has changed? Drop us into that a little further. What game are you playing now?
Well, several games.
It wasn't on the list.
It wasn't on the list. So when I say that, the game we're playing, if in a startup or trying to build a company, it's just you have to move very fast. You have to shift frequently, and you have to kind of see the forest of the trees because nothing makes sense most of the time. And so you can't ever just be static because shit just happens, things break, stuff you thought was going to happen. Everything you plan for doesn't go the way you plan. So it always takes longer, costs more money, it's more difficult. But now being able to process, create at a substantially faster pace, you can make quicker decisions, you can bring things out to test quicker, you can fail faster and recover quicker. All that can happen because you just have the ability to have tools to be able to interact and collaborate with in real time that would have taken, I've got to set a meeting with this team and product and this one in engineering and this one with finance. And now I can have all that going at once, just working through stuff to try and figure it out to get an answer and come back to just a much smaller team. To get answers.
Yeah, cool. Aaron, I want to pitch that one back over to you because you've worked for a long time as corporate executive, COO, roles like that. And now that you're building Legendary, what is something that you see yourself able to do now that would have been impossible, maybe impractical 5 years ago?
The hard part about that answer is there's so much.
Pick 10.
Yeah, right. The reality is it's, the pace of innovation, the pace of work, the pace of getting feedback, being able to reapply that feedback to create value has just shifted so dramatically that I think most of us who are working in it are still a bit unsettled.
What do you mean by unsettled?
Well, you kind of have to undo a lot in order to be able to use it to its full advantage, right? Our team has a saying that we laugh at all the time. We're using the most advanced technology on the planet to build something that's obsolete. Because
okay, so unpack that just a bit for us. Help us understand what you mean by that.
Oh gosh. So first, there's layers to that because everybody is moving at this pace. When I say everybody, if it's not you and the person that you're looking at, it's your competitor across the room. It's somebody that you've never seen that's going to come out from the side and completely unseat you. Because there are so many places and so many areas that you can that can be impacted by this technology And really, I'm not going to go down this either, because it's this emergence of this intelligence system into what we're doing is so profound that, you know, we sit here with companies and we create these values and we say we're going to do this thing, not realizing that everybody is doing that. Everybody has that capability, and the commoditization of it has made it so approachable that what I'm working on is no longer as valuable as it may seem to the market, because, oh, cool, it's CRM. You know how many, you can go just click CRM and get a CRM. Yeah. It's like, it's not, so now when you're just trying to sell a CRM, you're like, okay, I'm selling something that everybody can now do. It's like building what do they say? They say building a website is now like building a PowerPoint presentation. Building a software is now like building a website, and the true software engineering is in model development. And so that whole layer has shifted so dramatically that now people go, well, I'm going to go build websites. I'm like, you're going to go build PowerPoint presentations for people.
And you think that's valuable.
And you think that's valuable.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I mean, really, because it can move so quickly, and on our platform, we've watched, like, okay, a user has an issue, we can solve it in minutes. We can deploy it, test it, verify it, and then fix it. And that pace of value creation is incredible, and in most cases is held back by my ability to undo what I thought was possible. And so I think with a lot of us, in this question of AI in our companies, we're faced with a lot of potential, more potential than I think we've all recognized is available to us. I like them. What's his face? Ask people questions. How many people use Claude? And how many people have replaced a lot of their operations? Yeah. Like, not a lot of people have done that, but the availability is there. The problem is actually our ability to undo our thinking and unseat ourselves from those areas and be willing to explore something that is probably scary. And so in business operations, there's so much more we're able to do. I think the biggest challenge, though, is undoing the way that we thought it should be done.
Yeah. So John, you've been working on the infrastructure level of all of this. Working at AWS, you're actually pushing out the things that you're hoping we'll all use, right? What do you think is possible now that wasn't 5 years ago? When you guys are sitting around talking about that, the things you're hoping we pick up.
Yeah, so 5 years is a long time.
I know. Do you want to go back 12 months?
Yeah, 12 months, yeah, maybe 18.
Okay.
There's, and I'll cover two sides of this coin, because things are transforming very, very quickly. And I'm going to try not to get into specific product names and acronyms and stuff like that. It doesn't matter. And quite honestly, in 6 months, like, one provider is going to have it, then the next, then the next. These things are being commoditized very, very quickly. But there are real transformations too. And I'll touch on a couple of them. And I think about sort of examples in our business that I've seen. So there was sort of the GPT moment, right? Where everybody was like, oh, we have AI now. And honestly, this has been like 40 years in the making, just FYI. This is not something really that new, but it was a meaningful change and a meaningful moment. And everybody got caught up on, oh, what does this thing I can talk to, what can I do with this now? Right? It's kind of a new version of search. And this happened across, companies that are global companies, billions and billions of dollars in revenues, and they're like, what do we do with this? Everybody, engineers, CEOs, nobody knew what to do with it. So everybody starts talking about the chatbot. All right, the chatbot. We got to build a chatbot. We need to engage with our customers because, of course, everyone is very customer-centric, right? So we're going to build a chatbot. It's going to know about our customer and know about its data. Okay, great. Well, you take a step back, and then you realize, oh, well, everybody's doing that, as was said, right? So all of a sudden, everybody's doing it. What value are you actually providing? Now you got to go to the next step. Oh, well, now I'll keep it to AWS just to be sort of clean in my thinking. So now the infrastructure platform has changed new capabilities because we're iterating very, very, very quickly. And I will say, as I think about founders, that iteration and iterating quickly is super, super important. But it doesn't just mean doing everything all the time. It needs to be purposeful. It needs to be grounded in the customer. It needs to be grounded in what's going to get you to what those goals of your customer are that also align to your business. And those two things need to be equally weighed, right? It's not one or the other. But having said that, right, now you've got new capabilities, and I think one of the biggest things that has changed is being agentic. And so, any founder today, I would propose, if you're going to be talking about how your business is AI, you better be building with agents, quite honestly, because if you're not, you're way behind the curve. And what does that mean, right? And this is kind of near-term, real-time now. What does it mean to build with an agent? Yeah, you can build an agent. Is that all that's necessary? Not even close, right? And as an early stage startup, you may be in the console building an agent. That's fine. There's different ways, there's different modes, there's different patterns. But you also want to think about the future. And you're going to need scaffolding, right? You're going to need things around those agents. You're going to need things so you don't become the sole purpose, building 20 agents and now you're just drowning in agents. And when it breaks, because it will, it's not if, it will absolutely break, right? Can you see why? Do you know why? Do you have any visibility whatsoever? And those are some of the things that have changed, I think, significantly over even last year, is being able to get transparency and visibility into what's actually happening, right? So now, from a builder perspective, if you're paying attention at this level, right, you can have transparency into what those large language models are doing, the reasoning, the steps, why they're doing it, where it screwed up, and said, oh, I'm sorry, I deleted that. I wasn't supposed to. I know, but I did.
Like sometimes the entire company, right?
Yeah. I won't name names, but yeah.
All right, so let's back up a step and someone take a stab at what do we mean when we say agentic, the adjective form of the noun agent. What does that mean?
You want me to go? So I think with AI, again, like when everyone started, it was ChatGPT, and there's like different layers within AI. So you have the thinking layer that you can interact with, and you have the build layer, and then you have the act layer, and then you have the memory layer and the orchestrate. So there's many levels to it, right? And then when I think about agentics, I'll give an example of how we use it at our company, because even though we have a product that we sell and that's an AI product, but we also have our AI join our calls, right? So, but it's not like a chatbot; it's a participant. So it's like our chief of staff agent, right? So this chief of staff agent joins all of our calls, and I don't know if anybody uses Notion, but Notion's like a workspace thing, right? So, so what we do is, as this agent is joining a sales and marketing call, and all of our sales and marketing and narrative is in Notion, what it will do is we'll identify, hey, there are certain things that, because everything changes so fast in startups, certain things have changed around your positioning. Certain things have changed around your narrative. So then going into to Notion, ask, hey, I'm going to change some of this stuff. This narrative is shifted a little bit. Maybe your ICP is shifted. We still have the human in the loop, the human at the center thing, because you don't want it to change everything. But it says, I'm going to update this. And the reason that's important is, as it updates it, you have real information that's constantly updated as people have conversations. So you have a product team having a conversation, and you have our sales and marketing team. All of that is facilitated by these agentic systems that then manage it, update things. And then what that does is we also use a tool called Lindy. So Lindy is an outreach tool, right? So, and Clay is another one. But what we'll do is the knowledge base that's pulling from, and Lindy, what it does email outreach and things like that. So, but the information it's pulling from is updated information from Notion. So that's your knowledge base that it's pulling from. So all of this is kind of built in where you don't have multiple people sitting in meetings, taking notes, and then having another meeting and putting that part of your project plan. You have agentic systems that are actually allowing you to do your job, again, making it more of the human aspect, while the AI does a lot of the machine-like stuff, updates things, deploys things, acts, orchestrates things, all of that, while you, as a founder, stay focused on your customer, stay focused on your team, and I think that's how I describe it.
Yeah, so we're doing very similar stuff. You mentioned chief of staff, so and there's a lot of models out there for testing this, and I'd say for me personally, and we're getting ready to deploy it to the other folks in the company. It's probably 75% value, and there's still bugs and there's still features and stuff that we're working on. But we've taken an approach to effectively, give every agent a name, a picture, a persona, a job description, like their employees. And so the one we're creating right now is an HR manager that will basically interview anyone in the company for a need they have. So let's say, hey, like our product leader, she's manually kind of listening to all the notes and then creating JIRA tickets for features we hear back from sales calls. So our HR manager, which is an agent, will be able to just interview her and then create another employee who will be an agent that will then do that job for her. So I have Sally Snail. She watches my email. And then we use granola. So almond granola is the one that watches my granola meetings. And so I've got like a team of 6 agents that report to a chief of staff. I have a visual org chart. I've got names for all of them. I have job descriptions for all of them, like whole personas. And they basically fire every day. And so I just get reports, and then that all goes into an Airtable. And so all of our, like, everything we do is recorded, and then all these agents are just every day coming through that, listening for, they know what our OKRs are on a quarterly basis. And then I have the chief of staff, I give feedback and say, hey, Sally missed that I sent this email back there, can you correct that? And then he'll go back, update her memory. And so they're learning and getting smarter about what our objectives are. And just over time, like what I'm finding is I can just go and look at these reports anytime. Now, all kinds of stuff that breaks, all kinds of stuff you have to monitor. We've got a security layer that kind of monitors them. We're implementing other stuff like that. But I think that's kind of what you're saying when you say agentic is taking the tools and beginning to go like, what are problems we can solve with automation using agents, and how do we personalize them? And we start thinking about them as just one more extension of the team. Like, you know, it's not just like a tool or an agent. It's like, this is Sally, this is Alman, there's the chief of staff. They have roles. Yep.
I'm going to add into that. I'm going to say what you just said and sound smart, because that was really good. The interesting thing about what you just said, and this was just for a lot of people here who are approaching this conversation with, you know, deploying some of these technologies in your company. I got into it, and we had a lot of our internal operations running, and then all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, oh, you know, these are actually almost all the exact same things that I need for my actual people doing this stuff. You said OKRs, like that's really good. It needs goals, it needs context, it needs, you know, the ability to actually access the tool that it needs. So I literally just took what we use in operations to run a good company, and then I said, okay, what if I gave that to the agents that we're using? And it was like, wow, that actually produced that what I needed, obviously 50 times faster. And then what that does to people is that goes, okay, then how can you elevate and actually do better and actually start to get rid of the things that you didn't need to actually have to do, and you can just start to move those people over. But when you guys are thinking about it, like when we're talking about agents and there's this idea of, okay, I got to AI my company, it's actually pretty straightforward. It's, okay, I have people that do these things and I need to do this system, but I also should provide the same oversight, same context. I should meet with it once a week, see how it's doing. You know, I should give it vision for where we're going, just so it has a better context for what it's building. Like, it's pretty cool.
So this might be a really dumb question, but do you give them their own email addresses, their own logins and passwords and
weirdly,
credentials?
I do, because a lot of what we do has to integrate with humans so deeply that we want it to feel as natural as possible. So you can email Abby and you have that thing if you need it. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't need it. We're in a, I'm not going to go into all of our stuff, but we're in a weird spot where we are working on symbiosis between software, people, and the things behind it. So the question actually becomes, how do we get people to engage with the depth of technology when they're not necessarily technologists? And so what you do is you serve layers up to them that they are very comfortable with and can use and can enjoy. And then you give the agents all of those same, here's your goal, here's your thing, here's your job description, here's this thing. Go talk to this guy over here. When you guys agree that this thing should be done, let me know and say yes. You know, it's all that kind of stuff.
John, I saw you waiting.
Yeah, I was just going to say, first of all, I love all these answers, really good answers. And, you know, I think of it a little bit differently. I'm going to use a metaphor because I think we've got to ground in what we know, too, which helps people make those people adjustments. I think about it in terms of like a movie star. Like you've got an agent, right? And so if you're a movie star and you've got an agent, what does this person do for you? Oh, wait a minute. First of all, they're doing something for you. Right? So they're actually doing something for you. In order to get that done, they have to know a whole host of things. Right? So they need to know what you're going to do, why you want to do it, when you want to do it, how you want to do it. Oh, then they go talk to people and they go do stuff. They're going to negotiate a contract. They're going to set up meetings for, like, they're going to do this, all of these things that save you time, effort, hopefully pain, right? And they're going to make you money, right? That's what an agent does. They help you be successful in life as a movie star. And so these guys are movie stars.
We have an old rule in our family that says we will not argue about anything you can Google, right? Which leaves plenty to argue about. But I'm trying to build a mindset where this is new and it's hard, but I'm trying to build a mindset that says, and I will not do anything I can AI, right? That kind of an idea. All right, so sounds like that all creates a bunch of leverage for you. And since we have a bunch of investors in the room, that's part of our audience and conversation we're having, I'm wondering if you can help me understand how all of this changes your raise or your relationship to investment, or how much money you need to build a company like this. What is this done in your thoughts about raising money? To anyone.
It also creates more work. So more leverage, but it's not like, I mean, the volume of work, I would say, has gone up and is more fun.
Yeah.
But it's not like AI is just doing a bunch more and I'm hanging out. Like, just managing, it's no, like if I'm gonna hire employees or build agents, I'm still managing, creating, engaging.
Yeah.
So anyway, leverage and work. So.
Yes. That's actually one of the things in a bunch of AI surveys that we've learned from the difference between last year and this year is last year the conversation was largely about time savings. This thing can save me time. This year it's about, no, I can do more. It's productivity. And so it's like, oh gosh, it's back to work in a very real way. Does that impact the conversation you're having between your company and the investors you're talking to? Daniel, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so, for our seed, we were initially looking to raise 1 to 1.5 billion, right? So, and that was the idea. We're gonna, ramp up our sales and marketing, put some into product, tech, and all of that. And we stopped at 500,000. We raised 500,000. We're like, that's it. We don't want to take additional capital when you don't need it. And that's the thing that's a little bit difficult. When you, this is my fourth startup, and I was at one that was a YC company, and we were scaling it, and the big thing was, okay, we need to raise our Series A. We raised a 35 billion Series A, and all of that went into sales and marketing, some in product. And then you look at all of that money, and with that, you could have raised 5 million and done the same thing. Like in this age, you would have raised 5 million, been able to do the same thing. So I think it changes your opinion on what you actually need to bring in to do what you need to do. Because there's so much opportunity that's out there that with AI, if you use it not just as like my strategy partner or something, but if you're actually optimizing the use of it, and it's not automating workflows or anything like that, but actually thinking through how can we get a product, get it in front of a customer, prototype it, iterate on it, all in real time, basically, it really gets that revenue to come in a lot quicker. And if a revenue comes in quicker, you don't need all that, investment, right? And it allows you to test things. So one of our customers is a company called Unlimit, and they're a payment platform. And what they're doing is they just launched in the US. And what we're doing with them is we're engaging in conversations with, thousands of their target consumers, right? Thousands of them. And as people are talking about what they need from that product, it's a new product to the US, but it's global, that our swirl agents actually talking to their product and tech agent at the same time. So as it's talking to each other, you're talking about an issue that you have with a certain product. At the end of the meeting, we're trying to do hyper-personalized product generation on the fly. So imagine talking about an issue that you're having. At the end of the meeting, you'll have your product. Hey, you mentioned this. This was an issue. Here you go. So that, I think, is the pace. So you can start recognizing revenue a lot quicker, and you don't need all that capital to scale up the team. I think it really changes the outlook on investment.
Yeah. Aaron, I saw you lean in, but what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it was actually interesting because I'm thinking more about the relationship with investors and the landscape. It has dramatically changed because there are so many people that can also do what you do. I mean, the tech moat is just 2 inches deep. It's like it's just kind of that. So what it's done is it's changed the conversation. Eric asked me a good question about how do you stay adaptable, and what I was thinking about is actually it hit me of how much also hasn't changed. because yes, we can now do more, and these things that we're capable of doing are more available to us, and it is magic. It's actually changed also the fact that now that's available to more people. So there's still the competitive factor. It hasn't actually changed a lot in, I would say, the kind of that weighing of, are you going to be able to go after this? It's changed the way that's scored, but not the scoring that's there. And so there's still kind of that challenge that you have to overcome. There's no magic. There's no easy button. But what has changed, and this is something that I've been actually, I've been having conversations with our investors over, which is actually kind of a really cool conversation, is we are now more limited by our vision than almost anything else. And if we don't actually have a really good, we talked about this, if we can have a really good picture of what magic looks like, then that gives us for our customer what they actually want, what they actually are looking for. Like right now, a lot of our customers are actually in tech overload. They don't want another platform. They don't want another agent. They don't want another thing. And you're like, okay, how can we actually keep the bar moving in our company and stay ahead of what magic actually looks like to our customer? And with that, we're actually more limited by our vision than we are just our capability. And so for a lot of our investors and the people that are investing in our company, that bar has moved to what is the actual vision? Because we know you can create a lot of stuff now, and we know that you can solve a lot of problems, and so can everybody else. And so now we actually care more about the way you're expanding, not just the thing you're solving immediately.
John, when we were talking about this in advance, it's one of the things you really pointed out, because I was really emphasizing the change side of the equation, because it's easy to do that. And then you get optimistic and maybe even a bit hypey and all that kind of stuff. And you reminded me of how there's a whole set of things that haven't changed at all, right? Help us understand what you were playing out there.
Yeah. So let me back up to that last question, and then I'll go into that one, because I think that last one is interesting from a slightly different angle. And I think about the operating costs and the margins of a company, and I think they're incredibly important. Whether you're talking about your acquisition margin or acquisition costs for customers, or your margins of operating, or as you're going to start scaling and increasing product development, what those costs look like. And this is something that I think can bite people unintentionally. And is super, super important. And if you're an enterprise, maybe you have deep pockets, maybe you can move money around, different thing. For a startup, maybe not the case. And there's something that is definitely emerging for some companies, kind of depends on what your product is and what your customers are. But we're trading cost buckets, if you will, right? And for decades, we've had employees as a cost, a major cost. There's lots of things we can say about that over the last year. They're very visible publicly. Those costs are being traded for compute cost, right? And this is a very, very real trade-off that's happening. And so, as I think about how startups continue to not only build initially, but then think about scaling, that trade-off cost is really important. And there are decisions architecturally that you may make early on that have an enormous impact later on. What model are you going to use? How big is that model? Oh, we've got to use the big model because it's got great reasoning. Well, you're going to kill yourself on your compute costs later on when you try to scale. Do you use a distilled model? Like, when do you switch? Do you use multiple models? Are you ready for switching and using multi-model in your platform? Right? There's all of these decisions that, coming back to what the real question was capital, right? And you've got to think about that capital. Like, if you're going to architect a certain way, you might not need that capital for employees, but you might need a bundle for compute. So something to think about.
Well, this is the emergence of the leaderboard on token spend, right? Where companies are having to encourage people to spend more on compute, and as much as their own payroll.
Right. Yep. So what hasn't changed? I think as I think about this from a systems perspective. And from a systems perspective, if you go back to client server, you go back pre-cloud, you talk about cloud, I'll talk more recently about microservices and machine learning that ultimately lead to AI and agentic AI. All of the underlying technologies and infrastructure from a wider systems perspective are still very, very necessary. And so when we all get amazed by the things that AI can do, when you actually want to build a business around it, there are super important things that have been around forever that you still have to do, right? There's regulatory, there's compliance, there's security, there's observability, which is on the business, but then the infrastructure too, right? There's different types of observability. From a technology perspective, you've got to think about how are you managing your users. Your users are now also agents. You've got to manage access controls. There's all of these hosts of things which if you think it's just going to be magic, what you'll realize pretty quickly is it's really, really complicated. And if you don't have a solid or large team to be able to tackle that, you're going to have to figure it out yourself, right? And so those things haven't changed. They haven't gone away just because it turns into a bunch of agents.
So as founders, I want to think about your identity as a founder, what your role is in getting this thing founded, and then as you build the company, what your role is. And to get at that, I want to get real practical of what are you doing more of and what are you doing less of? Jason?
In terms of just scaling the company and in terms of your role.
In
the
your
changes
role as a founder, that's right.
I mean, I think, in any startup that I've done over the last 20 years, the role of founder, you're dreaming up the entire company, you're thinking of who your co-founder is and, what you need in terms of assessing the market and just you're doing everything, right? So in the very beginning. And then I think, it shifts to then, once you start getting a few customers and you understand what the customer's need is, then you start thinking pretty methodically about what's the next person or resource that I need to solve the biggest problem. So as that kind of time gets more and more compressed in terms of the growth of the company, the pace it's growing, and your ability to take on and roll, wear different hats, then it's what do I need that's going to help solve this. And then I think, the other thing that a lot of founders, I talk with don't really think about is, are you still the right fit for the role you have? And being willing and humble or open to assess that. And we had, when we were, scaling our last company, and we had another company that was growing pretty fast, and we talked with the founders there, and they said, look, every 6 months or so, we just assess, do I have not only the skill to be in the role that I'm in and doing what I'm doing, but do I have the capacity to grow at the pace that the company needs me to grow? And if not, I need somebody else who can do that and step into a different role. And I've seen that go sideways a number of times when someone doesn't have that awareness themselves and feel like, hey, I've got to be the one doing this thing when they're really bad at it. And go, no, you need to move out of the way and have the humility to do that because you're stifling the company. So there's got to be some sense, I think, of just real emotional awareness of like, am I good at all the hats I've got to wear? Because you may have to be in marketing and sales and wear a bunch in the beginning, and then you have to go, I know that I'm not like, right now I'm doing a lot of operations. That's not my core strength. I can do it, but it's not going to be the best. And so we have to show up at meetings and go, look, this task that's being done is getting done, but it's subpar, and we know that because we don't have that resource, and I'm doing it, and I'm not the one that long-term should be doing it. And just assessing those things and then being able to make those changes. Yeah.
Daniel, same idea for you. As a founder, and you've got the before and after story, right?
Yeah.
Before AI, after AI. As a founder, what are you doing more of today, and what are you doing less of?
So I think I'm doing less of the, we talked about OKRs and what your objectives are and how you're performing. There's a lot of project management. Execution is a big thing, like making sure everybody's on track to do what they need to do and ensure they're executing. A lot of that is taken away, right? Because again, kind of back to that earlier point, your agents know like what your priorities are. They're equipped with that, and they're managing all of that. So I think it's now, well, how does the future look? And we talked about it before, but there's so much change happening with the market, right? There's so many opportunities out there, and who knows what the future is going to look like. And in the past, it was, okay, here's where the future is headed. We need to adapt to that. We need to make sure that we're moving at the pace of technology. I think it's different now. I think, and this is what we did, which was, we're going to predict where the future is. Like, we're going to actually predict where it should be, and we're going to build that. And I think
where it should be is an important distinction, right?
Right.
What do you mean by that?
So I feel like when we think about agents and agentic, I think it gives us a lot of agency to actually create a very different world. Like we now don't need to say, when I was growing up, my parents wanted me to get a, engineering, medical, a doc, like whatever it is, go get a job. Now it's like, go create a job, identify what you want to do in the world and do it, right? You have that opportunity. And when you think about, hey, the reason why we're looking at Swirl as an offline reality is we think it's very noisy online. We think it's very divisive online. And we think the best way to actually create deeper relationships is through conversation and dialogue. Well, we want to bring people together. So the idea for us is, can we bring people together? And that was a future that we wanted to create. And here's how we're going to do it. And I think it gives people a lot of opportunity to say, the world should look like this. Now I'm going to create that world.
Yeah, okay. So you're in the process of not adapting to inputs. I mean, I know you still are, but you're leaning into creating a world that is the landscape of the future that open?
I mean, there are factors. You still need to make sure that the market is ready for that, right? It's not like you're in a vacuum. But I think what we're leaning into is the human element of it, right? We believe humans need connection and engagement, and I think that's what we feel will always be the case. We always will feel you need that. That's why everyone's so engaged and happy here. So we're all connected. So we're leaning into a fundamental human truth, and so we're saying that is where we want the future to go, and we're going to lean into that. So that's kind of what.
Yeah. So that brings up the concept of the uncertainty of the future. And of course, we know all the uncertainty is in the future. It always has been. This is the horizon line that we can see to is closer now. It's harder to see over the out there, like what's going to happen. But yet you guys are making claim to value into the future, raising money to execute on that. So how do you handle the level of uncertainty that these tools are creating? And I'm leaving that open to whoever wants to tackle that. But how are you dealing with that?
I don't think it's any more uncertain now than it's ever been. I think it's a different uncertainty. I mean, building a company, building a business, you live in and with uncertainty. And so now add AI to it. So it's like there's lots of ways that it could go. And I think someone said earlier, and we take this philosophy, I mean, the pace at which tools are coming out, you can't really rely on any one thing or get too far entrenched in something and say, I'm going to rely on this, because as soon as you do it, someone else came out with a new model, something changed, they went out of business, they got acquired, now they shut it down. So but I don't think that's anything different than you're facing in any business you're starting, which is you have uncertainty. Now it's just you have to add the delta of how much am I leaning into this and all the risks of what John said also, like security risks, and then you're just trading costs, whether you're hiring human. There's all overlooking all the time the costs of time and money and I think we're, lots been in the press these last couple weeks, we're massively being subsidized right now. So there's going to become probably a wrecking day sometime in the near future that we've all been really when Opus 4.6, I felt was the greatest model. 4.7 came out, I thought I lost my mind because literally it felt like it regressed and I couldn't function. It was like, shit, I've set up all my life around working and all of a sudden now it's wrong. What do I do? But I think the next thing that's going to come is all of a sudden they're like, oh, it was really cheap to do this. Now it's like super expensive. And now there's a mass, trade-off, and what do we do there? So I just think it's not much different. It's just a different tool.
You're still driving through the fog.
You're still driving through the fog, yeah.
On that too, we talk about 4.7. So GPT 5.5 came out recently, so we've been using Claude, and we've been using kind of OpenAI and GPT just to kind of test it. And GPT 5.5 has like a 70% less token utilization rate. So which is crazy. Like the output 70% less than Claude. It was like, well, you're just so bought into one, and now something else comes out, and it's 70% from an output. That's quite a bit. So how do you navigate through that uncertainty too? Because you can't get too bought into one, and then Claude is going to come out, and they're going to be so.
It's one of the things that, and this is very much sort of a cloud perspective. that problem's been around for years with compute. Not GPUs, just normal compute. And some of the biggest enterprises, clearly this takes some work, right? But they build their platforms to basically just move over to another provider. And ultimately, that's what a lot of people now are doing with Agentic, is that same thing, to be multi-agent, multi-model, multi-provider, and that's complexity. But the thing is, when things iterate so quickly on the model side and all of a sudden it is 50% cheaper or 50% more accurate, what are you going to do?
Where is AI not living up to your expectations? Again, open to whoever wants to handle that one.
I wish it would just do more work for me. I mean, you know, the dream is it's going to like take over and we're all going to be out of jobs. Not the dream. Like that's like the worst case scenario where like massive layoffs. I think that's probably overhyped. Certainly there's going to be different jobs that are, it'll be interesting to see that. But I think that, you know, look, my desktop has never been so disorganized and I've never generated so many files in my life. It's totally overwhelming. So I'm not working less and I'm questioning if I'm being more productive. I'm having fun learning. Like I'm getting technical and that feels pretty cool because I've not been an engineer, but I'm pushing code and I'm like, I have pull requests and I've got Jira back, you know, all the stuff that I never could have done. But I'm not sure that I'm, like if we did a linear graph, like am I substantially more effective? I don't know. It feels better. It's more fun. I think I'm like more productive. But I wish it would just did more that worked.
Yeah. Did more than that worked.
It worked.
Yeah, that actually worked.
And brought value.
Is it working better than it was 12 months ago?
100%.
Yeah.
Getting better all the time.
I would say on that, it's kind of one thing that I would. It is doing it better than it did 12 months ago, but it's not telling me no as much as I wanted it to. Like it's still really very pleasant. Like, oh, well, what it does, agreeable. You guys might go through this thing where you're like, okay, I'm building something and I'm just building something and then it's 3:00 in the morning and I have to get up in a few hours and it's just so great to just go be productive and go do these things that I have to have more no than it does. And not, you know, in my head, I'm going, I think this is very valuable for me, but it's not going, am I valuable for you? And you kind of want it to. So there's this little like... You still
want it to be more like a coach, like you. Like it's more like, hey, that's probably not a good idea. Because usually like he's pretty agreeable. Yeah. And I want to be like, come on, I know it's a bad idea.
It knows it works for you and it does not want to get fired.
Well, even when you're making stuff, it's like, yeah, let's make it this. We can make that. Let's make it this way. You just broke everything. We can make it though.
I think that's the number one is being too agreeable. It puts you in a bubble, and then 2 hours later you're like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And it's like, oh no, this is great. You're doing wonderful.
Smartest guy in the room. This comes back to a statement you made a few minutes ago about how vision and having that clear sense of why and what I'm doing is even more important. How do you measure if you should be doing something, right?
I think we all might maybe suffer from this idea of like after a certain point in the future, it's like what is this? You know, it's kind of like watching a sci-fi where you're like, oh yeah, back in the 80s, we watch a sci-fi and you guys could look at data from across the planet, but you're doing it with actual buttons. Haha, suckers, we don't have buttons. You know, like we always look in hindsight and go, well, these people predicted well and these people don't. And at some point, we're just all kind of fighting the same game. Investors, it's the same thing. You know, you ask what's changed in investor relationships. I'm like, well, you know, we can do this, but then after that, nobody has an idea of what's going to happen. So the best thing that I can do sometimes is show up today and solve the problem that's in front of me and actually be willing to listen to feedback and implement that quickly to create magic in the moment that I'm in. And so for us, you know, our metric for that is, can I get to the end of the day and say that I did a good job and that we produced good work and the people that we're working with are feeling value from what we did? And can I just keep pushing that out and doing that?
Yeah. So another way to think about that question for you, Daniel, is what is still hard about being a founder, even though you have all these AI tools?
Well, I love being a founder, though. And I think probably what's hard is just this misunderstanding of what AI can do and getting people to be not too scared of it. There is a bit of fear, all right? But I think if it's managed correctly, you can actually get people to understand if you talk about it more in like the human sense, like we talked about, like it's your employee, right? And people can relate to it a little bit more. I think it's just that education of it's not that scary. It actually gives you an opportunity to do more. And so, people hear about AI taking all of these jobs, and you hear like PayPal, I think at 20%, Coinbase cut another 20%, all these companies cutting jobs, and they're cutting a lot of the routine programmatic jobs. But I also think there's going to be a point, which is like what makes me excited as a founder, is where it's not going to be like, well, how can we reduce cost here? It's how can we like 10x this using the people that we have? And to me, that's really exciting about having a chance to actually maximize potential of the people that you have and having them do it in a way that they're probably passionate about. I don't have a lot of negatives about being a founder.
I love the 10x comment because I think that's like the value side. There's a lot of talk about risks, understandably fine, but on the value side, agents can do so much more from the perspective of consuming data, like so much more. And if we can focus on the value side and figure out where those 10x opportunities are, the opportunity is endless.
Okay, this is my last question, and I want you to think about the room. Got founders in here, and you have investors that are trying to pick founders, right? If you were speaking to a founder and they were starting a company today into this ecosystem that we're talking about, what would you tell them to do?
Not.
Just don't do it.
Good luck.
What would you say second?
I mean, I think founders probably, not maybe more than ever, but in a different way, have to be able to be a very, very, very comfortable with being unsettled and not looking to feel settled, because that will usually cause a lot of decision making that actually isn't helpful for the company.
So that's been true of founding, right,
Yeah.
for a long time. What makes that more, why would you lead with that in this context?
I think about the journey that we've had, and I go, it's as a founder, it's me, and there's been a lot of conversations around that. I'm now more capable, and this is also kind of context when you're a solo founder that you have a lot more capability. But and the reality is you've kind of seen the thread of like more human. You get to be more, there's more of this kind of we get to interact with people more, and really I think. Part of this comes down to we are all given hammers and we're all given really large weapons, and we can all just go make all these things. And as I'm moving through the world, with my team, for instance, something like alignment is wildly, wildly important because we now have so much more capability. They could go destroy something so much more easily that alignment, that ability to have clear and honest communications, partnerships, same things. It's like not just employees, but the people that you're working with. Being able to actually find cohesion and symbiosis and network in that thing, but then also being able to do that, and it's not just the value of the alignment, it's the value of how quickly you can unsettle yourself to find alignment with a group of people.
That's great. Daniel, what would you tell a founder to do in this new context?
I think first, they have to have a really good why, like why they're actually doing something. Because there's a lot of opportunity to, hey, we can create products, we can launch them, we can make money, and then you're just like everybody else. There's going to be we have a lot of AI slop, like Gen AI slop. There's going to be a lot of product slop, right? And I think just understanding what is your real reason for starting this and being a founder, and then identifying who you want to go to battle with, basically, and be very careful. Kind of to your point, you need to have those alignment, values alignment, mission alignment. I think it's less about, well, I need to get this person with this exact skill set that comes from this, college. And I think it's less about that. It's more about, am I going to be able to work with this person? Are we going to push forward in this, age of uncertainty? Can they be uncertain? Can you live in ambiguity and be able to innovate off of ambiguity? If you can, then perfect. If you can't, then it's not the right place for you.
John, what would your advice be to a new founder?
I keep coming back to two
Mike.
things. I keep coming back to two things, thank you. One, design for failure. No matter what, design for failure in all aspects. Your org model, your business model, your infrastructure, design for failure. And know that it's going to fail somewhere. You don't know where, but it will. And the other part to that then is architect for the future, right? They kind of go hand in hand, but architecting for the future is very different. Clearly, I'm going to take a technical background, perspective on that, but there are things that you can do in distributed systems that will set you up for long-term success, scaling. Your business model might change, your product model might change, but your underlying infrastructure and the ability to scale is super, super important, and that's designing for the future and for success.
Jason?
In the context of AI and what we were talking about, I would say the fundamentals haven't changed. Like being able to have a good product, being able to have a market, needing to manage cash flow, like all the fundamentals of business haven't changed. What has changed is, for the first time, I think, in history, if you think about what you had reach to or you didn't have reach to. So, for example, I went to a community college in Portland, Oregon. I didn't go to Stanford. Someone who went to Stanford probably had access to more capital or more resources than I did going to a community college in Portland, Oregon. Or if somebody was born into a wealthy family and someone said, hey, here's $1 million, go build a business, and you're scrapping for it. Like, those are just some inequalities that you can't, change. But today, it's a level playing field from the access to be able to learn anything and start a company with less resources and with less people and with less money. Even within that, somebody who has been building companies 4 times that has the skills is going to be able to just have access to know how to do stuff that you don't know how to do, but you have access to learn how to do it at an unprecedented rate that we've never seen before in history. And there are very clear examples of people today, mostly largely younger folks that are aggressively consuming how to build it, that are learning how to do this and build one-person big companies. And so I would say just use AI to teach you how to do anything you want to do, and it's a pretty open field from that standpoint.
Awesome. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate your time.